Thank you very much for taking your time to come here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I just wanted to start off actually quoting you during one of your lectures. You had said if you had one wish for humanity, it would be to give them unlimited imagination. So as we go through this interview, I really want everyone at home to just keep in mind having an open mind, an open heart, and imagination for possibilities. Could you just explain the work that Hippocrates does and the wide range of services that you guys have here and how that is seamlessly integrated into the healing protocol?
Well, as some of you know and many do not, the Institute opened our doors in Boston in 1956. And it was founded initially from the unbelievable recovery that our founder, Ann Wigmore, made. She had advanced stage 4 colon cancer, was told by the Harvard doctors in 1952 she had 90 days to live, and recovered from that and said, I have to teach this to people. So right from our early days, we've been a center that focuses on education. And because of that, she was wise enough, and then my cohorts over the decades have been wise to think of how distorted we are on the planet today, how estranged we are from any normal. Mm-hmm. So this is why we're so comprehensive. So 35 to 40 hours of education a week, and most people are here 3 weeks, so if you can imagine that. Our consultations are more basic, discussions and education than they are dictation, as you would have in many healthcare professions.
Right.
And we also, over the years, have built a repertoire of understanding the greatest technologies from around the world that are non-invasive, that literally enhance the immune system. So I'll bring this down to 3 categories. Number 1, everything we do here, be it psychotherapy or electromagnetic therapy or IV therapy with food-based supplementation, or be it food itself or exercise, all are for one means, to get the body to function at its maximum level. Mm-hmm. How everyone has ever gotten sick from the beginning of man is a weak immune system. Everyone has ever gotten well is a strong immune system. And as you know, what we're best known for is thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people coming here and reversing major diseases. Mm-hmm. And there's no magic in this, and it's hard work, and it takes people with conscious courage to do it. But that's why we have a wide array, as you said, services. I would rather say they're offerings. Mm-hmm. We don't force anything, we teach, and hopefully people are receptive enough to use.
Right. Since being here, I've seen elite models, I've seen professional athletes, business leaders, and then I've also seen the sickest of the sick. And so within the segment of the sickest of the sick, what is the range of sickness and disease that you guys see here?
Well, after healthcare has failed people globally, as we sit here together today, mm-hmm. there's people from over 20 countries. Mm-hmm. I just walked out of a meeting 30 minutes ago with people from France, and people from Belgium, and people from Quebec, Canada. Mm-hmm. So after that has failed them, many of these people show up. So the range is everyone from somebody like me that was just overweight and not happy to a person who was told they have catastrophic, so-called incurable disease. Mm-hmm. And it's young people, and it's mature people, and it's sometimes it's hard to hear the English language being spoken here, mm-hmm. because people are from such a wide array. Mm-hmm. And I guess what happened is over the more than half a century that Hippocrates has offered what we have, is our notoriety and reputation has come because we try to be as honest, upfront, and authentic as we can be, rather than say to people, we have some magic cure or pill, or there's one way to get well. I don't believe that. I think many times it's mostly the psychology, many times it's mostly the diet, sometimes it's combinations, almost evenly across the board. But what we have understood is that nobody is a solo act. Mm-hmm. Nobody's a vessel unto themselves, that we're unified with the universe, we're unified with other people, mm-hmm. the planet we live on, the food we consume, and that unification should be represented in the way that people are helped back to their recovery or in my case, in your case now, to prevent disease.
Right.
And to prevent aging. So it's not only sick people that come here, half the folks are smart people that come here.
Yeah. Either frightened or enlightened, as they're saying here.
Frightened and enlightened, but it's all about fear.
You briefly just touched on unity. What, in your opinion, how fundamental is the relationships people foster here and the connection that they make? How fundamental is that to their healing process?
I think it's the majority of what people do here.
Right.
So we have a wonderful team of coworkers I work with, 215 coworkers. We usually only have about 100 in-house guests at a time, and health educators, of course, which you have 30 or more than 30 in your group. But the truth of the matter is, the interrelationship and interaction I see among guests here, it's probably the #1 driving force, and it makes me excited about coming here every day and working. To watch how humane people are, how much love and compassion and empathy people have in their hearts, and how people who have never met each other are having conversations I'm sure they've never had with their spouse or their family. And long-time, lifelong relationships have come from this. Every year, several times, we have people that say, hey, remember we came here in 1962 together, or we came in 1988 together. And they come back every year, every other year. And many of the people who came here ill initially come back for holidays. Yeah. Because as you know, this is a resort setting. It's not a hospital, serious hospital. Let's poke on you.
Yeah, no, it's paradise here, truly.
It's a lot of fun.
That is for sure. Let's talk about the nutritional side. I would say that there's the 5 pillars here. Yeah. You've got the wheatgrass, you've got the sprouts, you have the sea algae, the sea vegetables, and then the raw food. So could you explain each one of those elements and why they are so important?
Well, let's start with natural history. What's left out in biology and nutritional science and chemistry and physics is people don't realize that all of that's wonderful stuff, and we're quite impressive when we know all of that, but natural history is what we're about. You're part of natural history, I am. Let's look at the way the earth started. Let's look at how you came about. And so by doing that, it was pretty clear for us over the decades to start to select the so-called foods that are the original foods, the original life forms, and the highly nutritious foods. Nothing comes comparative to this.
And highly evolved.
Highly evolved foods. And so it's almost, if you're thinking about this in a way, where did we select our menu of food from? It was from the foundation of building life. So the original food, the original life form on the planet was blue-green algae. And the whole planet, many of you don't know this because you don't really study much of this natural history in schools, even if you have a graduate degree. The earth was water. So there was no land, just complete water, and there was no life as we know it. And the sun permeated down these photons, which is light that came from protons, which is matter. And what evolved is blue-green algae, the first green plant. It was floating in the water and it ate it. And then that spawned other life, the second life form. So that's one of the foods we suggest, which we would call today freshwater algae. Blue-green and its very close sister, green algae. So then sodium came in, and then sea vegetables came about. So you would hear them called dulse, arami, haziki, wakame, and a wide variety of others that Asians are more endowed with than we are. And this is one of the reasons why Asians, historically, before they moved to Western diets, have dark hair until the day they die. They're making love till they're 90 years old. Because mineralization is not one of their issues. We're in the West, we're all mineral deficient pretty much. So that became part of the program. Now let's talk about when the land came up. When the land came up, Australia was the very first land. The algae morphed and moved onto the land and became grass. So the very first land plant was grass. So in our world, not only do we bring back to the world, we didn't invent it, we brought back to the world wheatgrass, but then the related seeds. So when you go out and look at a redwood tree, it was originally grass. It was originally algae, actually. But from a microscopic algae, evolved on land, became a blade eventually evolved to become a redwood tree and a forest, and every flower and everything you see can come from that. So grass and the related sprouts and seeds are a big part. So they're the three things we pretty much ingest and we take, and they are not only the first life form, the second life form, and the third life form, but they're the highest protein foods on the earth, the highest essential fatty foods on the earth, the highest vitamin foods on the earth, the highest mineral foods on the earth, and the highest phytochemical foods. Now, why we love them is not only do they nourish us beyond comprehension, but they literally protect us and help us reverse disease like man has never seen before. So the study of phytochemicals has revolutionized our knowledge of why this program has been so effective in helping people prevent aging and reversing disease. So now what do? We take vegetables. So vegetables are great. They always have to be organic, hopefully as fresh as possible. That's not always what happens though. How long ago was that vegetable, organic vegetable, bio vegetable picked?
Right.
Was it a week? Was it 5 weeks ago? This is why sprouts become incredibly important. And the big reason is because I can go into the poorest countries, which I have in the world, and say, by the way, you can eat the most nutritious food that heals disease and prevents disease, and you can afford to do it. It's not an elitist thing where white folks like you and I can do it all the time. You can do this if you're the poorest people in Haiti, in Calcutta, India, or you can do it in Beverly Hills or Champs-Élysées in Paris. And so vegetables are a big part of it, and we almost consider them condiments here.
Right.
Last year I spent about $2.5 million giving you condiments. I would have been better off giving you all sprouts, but the truth of the matter is we don't all relate to sprouts. Yeah. And if you're listening, you say, what the hell is he talking about? and sometimes we juice the sprouts and we mix it with vegetables to make it more congruent. Right. So people say, oh, well, of course I know what a cucumber is, I know what a celery, and so they're willing to drink the sprouts, which are 30 times more nutritious, 30 times more nutritious, just because they have something they can relate to in there. And then why raw food, and why all of this should be consumed raw, is that one thing that is completely grossly overlooked, and I've had higher education in nutrition, nobody even touches this, and when you talk about it, they poo-poo it, that we know through the greatest science ever held, which is being done at the Linus Pauling Institute, which is on the campus of Oregon State University. It used to be off Stanford campus. This was the alma mater of Linus Pauling, the only man in history that won Nobel Prizes for two unique different subjects. He was a man who said in 1968 that every disease has a nutritional deficiency component. So at his institute, he's long gone now, he died in his late 90s, there's a wonderful scientist who I've had come here to the Institute. He's part of our online program too, Dr. David Williams. And those of you that are science geeks like I am, you'll love to read his work. He shows that nutrition is pretty much abolished or totally minimized to nothing once you cook a food. So the proteins are altered, the vitamins are gone. They're just finished. The minerals are disturbed. The essential fats can become carcinogens. And the most important things that we've discovered in our research from around the world is why this heals and why it prevents aging is because of the hormones that are naturally in raw plant-based food, or organic raw plant-based food. If it's sprayed, it could be bad hormones for you. You can get cancer from it, even if it's a plant. Oxygen, phytochemicals, these medicines and enzymes. So once again, besides the proteins and the vitamins and the minerals and the essential fats and all the nutrition that you have in there, hormones, oxygen, phytochemicals, and enzymes, all of them are completely disturbed or completely gone when you cook a food. There's three other things that we know in science that are not debatable. It's debatable if you're ignorant and don't know any better. But if you really read science, you'll know this. That we've known since the 1930s, Hippocrates, who was, I think, a Ukrainian who worked at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, looked at eating a cooked plant-based food. We're not talking about fried bacon, cooked plant-based food. And back then, we identified, in the 30s, that your immune system attacks it because it identifies it the same way it would a microbe or a cancer. So you're eating cooked food, now your immune system's being compromised, and you don't want that. Somebody as healthy as you, if I keep compromising your immune system, and I'm a virus, can I attack you?
Yeah.
Cancer, can I attack you? Of course. So you want food that's going to insist that the immune system is at its maximum level and doing its job, not putting something in that's going to be attacked and weaken you.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing we know, that's called leukocytosis, by the
Yeah.
way. Second thing we know is, and this is since I was a little boy, 65, 66 years ago, they've known that you cook any food, all foods have oil, natural omega oils, some animal foods have, and even coconut has saturated fats, which are not good for you. But the fact of the matter is, you cook any of it, it becomes cancer causing.
Mm-hmm.
So the second reason you don't want cooked food, besides it compromising the immune system, it will cause cancer, and it will cause cardiovascular problems. Not maybe, it will. The third, which is the new boy and girl on the block, is acrylamides. Now, acrylamides are unbelievably interesting because all the vegans would sit around and say, well, I'm eating vegan cooked food like I was, and it's perfectly fine. And then they started to see that the worst thing to cook, if you don't want this carcinogen, cancer-causing element, is a carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
So the notorious ones on the street are potato chips and corn chips and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? A grain. You could take 100% organic grain, sprout it, make it usable, digestible, multiply the nutrients, cook it, and it becomes cancer-causing to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Swedes, when they talked about this 40 years ago, were ridiculed because everyone knew better than that. Now it's a done deal. There's nobody in science who's serious who doesn't understand this. So we'll review this once again rapidly and tell you why cooked food may kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we know for sure, since 1930s, that it causes leukocytosis, weakening your immune system. We know for sure that you heat it for 66 years. You heat an oil that causes cancer and potentially heart disease. And now we also know, which we didn't know a while ago, that you cook a carbohydrate, and by the way, it causes cancer, acrylamide. So last thing, why we give a lot of juice here? People say, oh, I read it on the internet, you should only eat raw food. Chewing is not natural to drink. It's not natural to live on the planet we're living on.
Yeah.
It's not natural to have the level of stress that you and I have. Not natural to be, even those of us who are natural boys and girls, we're not natural.
The low oxygen level as well.
Low oxygen levels. I'm driving cars, I'm in planes, How natural is that? So if we all want to be pure, well, let's go to the mountains and live in nature and not wear clothes and eat off the land. If you're not willing to do this, don't give me the baloney. You don't need juices. So living in the disrupted, disturbed, immune-destroying planet that you and I reside on now, you need massive amounts of nutrition just because of the stress.
Right.
I mean, you look, no other factor. Let's forget all the pollution and synthetic clothing and what else I can talk about for 5 days. By the way, the stress.
Yeah. That's created internally.
Internal.
Yeah.
And we now know that compare a woman like you now from 100 years ago, we have 15,000 times more stress. Can you imagine? That sucks nutrition out of you.
Yeah.
So I prefer taking several pounds, 2-3 kilos a day of sprouts and vegetables and juicing them, not blending them and killing them, but juicing them and drinking that. Because I get a massive dose of maximum nutrition.
Right. So talk a little bit more about the oxygen and enzymes within raw food.
Well, when you look at oxygen, we've known since the early part of the 20th century, and I forget the name, it was a German scientist who got a Nobel Prize from telling us you can't even ingest a nutrient, a vitamin or a mineral, unless oxygen is present with it. Now, the only place it's natural you find oxygen present with nutrients is in raw plant-based food. That's it. Once you cook the food, the oxygen goes. The enzymes are unique. If you go to university now and study enzymes, they're going to say they're a protein and we identify and there's different kind of enzymes. It's only part of the story. It's like me coming in here and saying, all you are is a skin on the outside of your body. You should be offended. Anyone I say that to should. You should say, wait a minute, I have a heart, I have a brain, I have a spiritual place.
And I'm mostly water.
And you're mostly water.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So I'd be wrong, you'd be right. And so an enzyme is eating electric for what? Your electric body. And as you saw my wife, Anna Maria, yesterday show you on film.
Yeah.
People basically who have all these globulated cells stuck together, you give them enzymes and 2, 3, 4 minutes later, they start to get energy.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And I take the blood He went to the store right away and bought six.
Wow.
5 minutes later. Yeah. Which ones? HHR. Now the new ones you only need 2, but the old ones. Look at these gorgeous white blood cells. Sitting there waiting for trouble. Yeah, and you know, it's amazing. I mean, look how happy the red blood cells are. Like, yes, listen to her. You know, because you saw what they. I think we gotta look at it again. You saw what they looked like before, and they were not happy. They were oh.
And you know what you're told by even the nutritional scientists who know that when you eat an enzyme, it's killed in the intestinal tract because of the acids. Wrong. Because it's electric. It goes right through and permeates everything and turns your electric on and puts that dimmer light up again. So that by the way your cells can function and operate and think at the maximum level they're supposed to, so that the disease can't attack you and kill you. The aging process can't make you old quick.
Speaking of electric,
Yeah.
this was, I think, a game changer for me. I was listening to a lecture once of a physicist, and he was saying, before you have chemistry, you have physics. Before you have a chemical reaction, you have an exchange of electrons.
Exactly.
And so when you apply that to human health, you need to fundamentally think of health in terms of energy and biofrequency. So could you speak briefly about biofrequency for those who are unfamiliar, and why nutrition, why emotional and spiritual awareness are so fundamental for biofrequency?
The way I can explain this to everyone, there's several batteries you can buy. And I don't care if you put it into a flashlight or you put it into some other electronic piece of equipment. Some of these flashlights are made out of minerals called sodium. They're sodium batteries. Now think of what I'm saying to you. Sodium is one of 4 mineral elements that we also call in science electrolytes. Electrolytes. And every one of your cells, you have about 100 trillion cells, have inside of them magnesium, calcium, and potassium. And surrounding them and interacting with them is sodium. So with that said, to make this super simple, when I'm giving you raw food that isn't cooked, it has this electromagnetic frequency, this biofrequency field in it. And when I give that to you, we can actually monitor, which I was part of this back in the 1980s at the University of California, Los Angeles, with Dr. Hunt. We can actually show you when you're eating bad food, the energy field or the biofrequency field of your body reduces. Every swallowing you have of bad food, you get less energy. When I give you, same person 10 minutes later, I make you drink a quart of water. I give you the raw food. The exact opposite happens. Now, when we look at this, which Anna Maria, my wife, did for 30 years, on the cellular level, we see it here all the time. People come who are sick and weak and dying and emotionally distraught and sad. And they have no life in their food. They liberate themselves here emotionally, spiritually, because that's as important as getting the energy from the food. And then we give them living food. And in every case, no exception, thousands and thousands of people, you see it come alive. Now, this is a real science. It's the future of nutritional evaluation, by the way. As you know, we do highly sophisticated studies here called BioWell from Russia, and this is what we're looking for. But on the other hand, nature, well before we science guys got involved with this and screwed it up, frankly, nature said raw living food is what gives you that biofrequency field. We don't have to reinvent it. And by the way, those of us who are experts with it, we only know a little bit about how this really works. What we do know is in clinical research and clinical observation, in my case for nearly half a century, is I see people come alive. You give life to people, and our founder was so cute and funny and intelligent and wild. And Wigmore. And she would say, "You give people life, they come to life, you idiot."
It's that simple.
That's it. You say, "Well, tell us how it works."
Stop making it complicated.
Who cares how it works?
Looking forward, what do you see? I know you spoke about this briefly. What do you see the future of healthcare looking like? What do you see the future of Hippocrates looking like? And could you just paint a picture of what the perfect healing center or hospital would look like?
Well, that's what I picture Hippocrates to be. I picture Hippocrates to be the future hospital where people will, as they used to, the elite in Europe, check into a place like this once, twice, or 3 times a year. So you don't have to be in a crisis. So you don't end up with a heart attack, or you don't end up with a cancer, you don't get fat, you don't get sick, you don't age prematurely, you don't break a limb. So this is really the new approach that, by the way, will save 85% of the economy of healthcare. It will save people's lives, suffering, loss of loved ones. It just makes sense. We are really searching out the cutting edge. But for the world, I think it's a promising time, and your generation is going to take the mantle. I think that things have gotten so bad, they can't get any worse. We have no leadership. Every system, starting with healthcare and religion and education, is completely fabricated, broken, and a failure. And so we're trying to put Band-Aids on gaping wounds, and they're bleeding and bleeding, and you can't economically sustain this. This is why I'm most hopeful. There's more people in our magazine you're going to read that just comes out now that call themselves spiritual but nothings. They're not part of any major organized religion anymore.
Right.
And why? Because people are turned off to philosophy that teaches you separation and anger and hatred and prejudice. People are turned off to that.
I agree.
And the next thing you're going to see is the educational system will eventually liberate you to educate yourself. Now, what's really weird to me is the person who is the most adherent in memorization gets the best grade. And it may be the person in the back who's completely bored with the entire process who's failing. And so it will work, it will work. And I think it's going to happen really quick. I think when you're sitting here at my age, in a few years, you're going to have a different world you're in. And I would like to say that we were a little part of that, but it's a lot of us all over the world. It's not just, and the consciousness is changing, and it's mandated, and economy will govern this, and it's an exciting time to be alive.
So I've been here almost 9 weeks now, and I think one thing I've observed, at first when I came here, I naively thought it was the food. And I think the more I've been here, the more I think it's the education, it's the liberation, it's actually teaching people how to take control of their own lives.
Exactly.
So I think that's truly what heals people, and that's why Hippocrates has seen the success that it has seen.
I agree with you.
And it's that philosophy, that modality, that thought process that I think is what's going to lead in the future.
You're right. Self-responsibility, you can't divert your attention and blame anyone else. It's either you or not you, and that's it.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what's taught here. It's no one's healing you, you heal yourself. It's just giving you the tools, the resources, the support, the love to actually do that.
And history and experience, and that's all I can ever do.
Exactly.
And then remember this, that you don't have to fight to do the right thing, you just have to live to do the right thing. That's the big thing. If you're just living truth and doing your best, not perfect, nobody's perfect, you're going to be okay. And you're going to help other people.
I agree. I think one thing I constantly say is it's much more important to be progressing, to be better today than you were yesterday. Forget about perfection.
Exactly.
Because that oftentimes it deteriorates the process, and it takes people away from actually doing anything.
People are working hard to do the right thing rather than doing the right thing.
Exactly. For a closing remark, is there anything you would like to say? Any advice you would like to give, or any insight that you've
Well, number one, I'm proud of young people like you who have insight and consciousness beyond most people of your generation. Not to say you don't have any, but I think you have more than other generations did. And I'm also going to tell all of you out there, you can't just take a ride on this ship anymore. You've got to learn to be the captain, because my generation is leaving, and my generation destroyed the earth that you're on and fed you McDonald's and made synthetic food and put deadly chemicals into the environment. And we are actually the first generation that truly worked incredibly effectively on destroying the very planet that is a gift to live on. Your generation has to pick that up. And the problem is that most of your generation is highly addicted to what we've done. That they're not focused, they're not clear on what it is. But I see a renaissance. I see a renaissance where people are basically going to say, we won't tolerate what was here before. We won't tolerate the lies and the cheating and the robbing and the deception. And that's what I want to say to you. It's okay. You know, when they wanted me to go to Vietnam, I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to go to Vietnam. When they said to me black people were bad, I went into the street and I marched with black people. When they told me women were not equal to me, I marched with women. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're not willing to live for what you believe in, and let's hope you believe in those things, and if you don't, shame on you, then you're not alive.
Well, Brian, truly, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And being here has been, honest to God, a dream come true. So
Thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you.